So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Planets Through Navamsa series. And today we're going to be doing Saturn in the 6th house of your Navamsa chart. As in, what happens when Saturn is in the 6th house in your D9 Navamsa chart, which is one of the most important charts in Vedic astrology, which kind of shows your married life, the strength of your planets, the second half of your life, the path of fortune, and the path to the spiritual ashram with your spouse. So very, very important planet. And as always, if you do not know if you have Saturn in the 6th house, what sign it's in, and what your other astrological details are in the birth chart, all that stuff, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, consultation, and link to my school, Magha Vedic Academy. And I know in the last couple of days, the PayPal thing wasn't working on Magha Academy, but I've actually activated Stripe on there. So you can it's right above the PayPal logo, and it'll just say put your credit card and all that. So it'll take that. But I think the PayPal issue will be solved by today or tomorrow. But anyway, so let's get started with our Saturn in the 6th house in Navamsa. So Saturn in the 6th house, so 6th house of Navamsa represents very similar things as to the birth chart. Like literally some astrologers just use the Navamsa itself. So it is going to represent obstacles, diseases, deaths, enemies, arguments, disputes, divorce. However, specifically in Navamsa chart, when we're trying to understand, so this is another thing, you gotta be able to make a discernment. Am I trying to study this just for the sake of Saturn? Or am I trying to study this for their career or marriage and how their married life is? Because Saturn will have these different avenues in the Navamsa and the 6th house. So in Navamsa 6th house, when we're looking at marriage, it's definitely going to represent dispute, divorces, deaths of the marriage, obstacles through the marriage. Okay, so obstacles, so let's say when you get tied knots, what happens? When you become married, your 7th house becomes active, Venus becomes active, and obviously Navamsa becomes active. So here, this is actually a very, very powerful, beautiful placement of Saturn. Because you got to understand about Saturn is that Saturn has this Stampana Shakti, meaning wherever he sits, he's going to suppress the quality of, or suppress the quality of that house, suppress the quality of that sign, suppress the quality of, if another planet is sitting there. So what happens in the 6th house with Saturn? Saturn will suppress, meaning take down the enemies, the obstacles, the disputes. So Saturn becomes excellent in the 6th house, where a person will have least amount of disputes and least amount of breaks, least amount of debts on behalf of the marriage. So Saturn will, especially if Saturn, you got to understand too, the position that Saturn is in, the sign that Saturn is in. What I'm saying here is that Saturn should be in a friendly sign or in its own sign, its exaltation sign. If Saturn is debilitated, of course, it's going to cause issues there in the 6th house. But still, it is a debilitated planet in the 6th house. So let's say it fits in the sign of Aries. Okay. That means you're a Scorpio ascendant in Navamsa. It is still, besides it's giving you, let's say, health issues, chronic health issues, or, knee pain and all that, but it's still going to suppress the enemy. Enemy kind of actually becomes weak with Saturn in the 6th house. Now, the other thing you have to realize is that Saturn will aspect the 8th house of longevity. Saturn will aspect the 12th house of losses and a 3rd house of efforts. And so here Saturn aspects on all the malefic houses will suppress the negativity of those houses. Because anytime Saturn aspects the 8th house, gives a longevity to a person. Whenever Saturn aspects the 12th house, it lowers the expenses. So a person may naturally be just frugal, maybe cheap. And in 3rd house, a person works hard. Person wants to put their effort into achieving their goal, whatever their goals are. Now, one thing we also see with this Saturn is that in the particular 6th house, you will not get along with your in-laws. There will be some disturbance with the in-laws. There will be some disconnect with the in-laws. That one thing you will notice with Anytime, especially after marriage, if you have a servant in your home and that servant, okay, has some issues in the hand, let's say they have broken hand, they have a pain in the hand, you will have tremendous issues in the marriage and with your in-laws. Your joint assets will a bit suffer. The other thing we also see with this is that you pay a lot of attention to your children. You feel like developing your children into good human beings is an obligation to society. You're going to feel like this is my obligation to society because I have to make sure my children are well educated, well disciplined, they have the good culture in them because I have to do this for the next generation. It's like there's too much involvement with children with this particular Saturn. One thing we also see with this Saturn is that any divorce proceeding, this doesn't mean that, like I said, if Saturn's the 6th house, of course you can get divorced based on the condition of other planets and Saturn, but the divorce proceeding will take the longest. Court cases will take the longest to be resolved. So these are the things that, gets really delayed. If one gets sick, the sickness can prolong a long time. So this is one thing that Saturn will do with the Navamsa. Like if you have debt, you'll be able to pay it off, but it'll take a long time to pay that debt off. Because again, Saturn is the turtle. Saturn walks slow. All procedures of the 6th house takes time. Even if it's like defeating enemies, it'll take you a long time to defeat those enemies. Okay. So guys, this was my analysis of Saturn in the 6th house of Navamsa. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below so you don't miss the next Navamsa video. Otherwise, for your reports, books, consultations, check out the links here or go to the Thinkific link for my Academy, Vedic Astrology Academy. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.